I'm a figurative painter. My work is based around subculture. In particular, I guess what people call alternative culture. So that kind of falls under the category of tattoos, piercings, body modification, sideshow performances, and anything that's really kind of socially not the norm. Like what some people, I know it's quite extreme, but saying socially unacceptable or taboo or strange. I really like working with the figure in particular. I mean, it's a really interesting challenge, especially I'm not trying to represent a figure ideally how it looks. I guess kind of when you're researching a certain subculture, or you're researching for a certain painting or group of paintings, you're reading about some things that they've done, or you're watching clips online, and their personality really comes through, and you really get a feel for it. And I think subconsciously, sometimes when you're painting a figure, you're kind of forming its own personality. So it, they come out quite quirky and interesting, each one. I guess it's how you feel towards what you're trying to make, and who you're trying to perceive, and what you're trying to get across to your audience. Because I would consider myself alternative. I'm part of that culture, so I'm definitely trying not to paint them in a bad light. I guess it's trying to expose people who are not used to this, just in a very fun, playful way. And what I think is quite interesting, I don't know if other people read it as that, but I mean, sometimes some of the work I do is really graphic and grotesque, quite intense, maybe some of the imagery. I mean, one painting that I did was about suspension. So suspension art is basically people who put hooks through their bodies and suspend themselves. So one particular painting, I had really like huge lumps of flesh and fleshy paint and lumps of blood on it. And then I had bits of wire kind of coming out of the painting, which I know is quite, really evil and sort of intense sounding. But generally my work is so colourful and bold. I think it makes it more approachable. And you're kind of not like, oh, this is really weird. It kind of you get drawn in by the colour, and then you kind of realise what it's depicting. But generally, people are fascinated by it, and that's great. Coming from someone from an alternative culture, that people judge you quite a lot. It's great that people are so open and really love this and love to hear about what my work is about and where it comes from and stuff. I don't really know where it comes from, but I always just had to be different. That's just in my personality. If everybody is doing one thing or wearing a certain type of clothes, I have to do the opposite. I really don't like conforming with others. So I think, I was thinking about my work last night, and thinking that if you're going quite formal to think about my work and in depth and quite more serious about it, like it could be about identity. I mean, that is essentially about what it is, because people who modify themselves, it is about identity. I mean, how you're representing yourself. Well, you see, it's just that I live and breathe this. I mean, I read so many books. I watch so many films and TV programs just about strange stuff and strange people. I just think it's fascinating. I think this comes back to I'm an only child, and I spend a lot of time on my own, and I love daydreaming. So I guess it's this thing of like really trying to put yourself in the shoes of other people and kind of understanding others, and it just always fascinated me. So, to join that with painting, I mean, painting, anybody who's an artist, I mean, you do it from when you're a kid. You're either a creative person or you're not. And I loved painting particularly because that's what I'm drawn to. I mean, it's a very messy, very physical medium, and for me it's so playful and so like just so enjoyable. The reason why then I brought this into my work, I just was always naturally drawn to drawing the figure, painting the figure. So when I started to really focus on painting and being like, okay, I want to be a painter, I used to paint photographs of myself when I was a kid. So I thought how this thing coming about of even though it's me in each painting, I'm painted a completely different way. I mean, there's a really interesting little one of me in bushes, and I painted myself like a Neanderthal kind of thing. And then it's just, this working on the figure was just a discipline for me to get in good connection with the medium of paint. And then, when it came to the time of, okay, now it's time to start trying to be an artist and make your work about something, I mean, it was natural to make it about that. I mean, a lot of people say, your work is autobiographical. I think for 99% of artists, it is autobiographical, so... Oh, I really wanted to do that, to be honest. I really, really do. Hopefully in the future. But I really am interested in photography and performance quite a lot. Especially because the stuff that I make work about really the outsider stuff that kind of is the same subject of my work is really photography based. And there is very edgy, quirky performers. It's fun. I mean, that's why I really enjoy being in front of the camera. I love being made up, and it's having an alter ego. So to be honest, I know my strongest point is painting. Obviously, after coming out of 4 years of studying, you play the whole time. You're constantly experimenting, and at the end of it, I know painting is my strong point. But yeah, I mean, obviously collaborating in the future seems like a really fun idea. It seems like a huge challenge to try and make the decision to do that myself, though. I really kind of projected myself throughout my studies as a painter, so I guess sometimes I have blinkers when it comes to other mediums. I'm not as well educated in sculptures or performers and stuff, to be honest. So it doesn't feel much difference in regards to your practice. I mean, you're still focused on what you want to do, but when you're going in to college, into your studio every day, I mean, it's a great focus, and you're comfortable with it. But when you're taken away from that environment, it's an extra challenge to try to make work, especially if you're trying to juggle, with a job and you're just everything else. I mean, it brings it to a different context.
Do you think there's many opportunities for emerging artists coming out of college?
There is. There's so many awards now. It's fantastic. But in regards to really trying to really get recognition, I suppose, in Ireland is impossible. I recently did an interview for the Sunday Times. There's a little plug there. I did an interview with the Sunday Times, and I talked about how it's so funny because how she put that in the article that I said this is it, this is my opportunity, they'll get me, Saatchi will get me, because I knew the type of work that I do. It's not very in fashion over here, and I knew Saatchi loves really punky, edgy kind of stuff. I suppose out of the norm, trying to break the mold kind of stuff. And anyway, exposure overseas. I mean, again, Ireland is a small country. Everybody knows the hotbed is London, Berlin, New York. So I'm just absolutely delighted that people will get to see me, and it's exposure. Yeah. So that was fantastic. I've always looked at female painters quite a lot, especially in the past year. Definitely, probably Chantal Joffre really, when I saw her work first, it really caught my eye. There was so much honesty in it that I really loved, and I really wanted to make this really awkward, playful, figurative work. But, there's so many of them. I love Alison Sholnick, Dawn Meller, Andreas Golder, Jonathan Mise, Matisse, I have to say, is probably like a huge thing for me as well. Definitely Matisse has been a great teacher for me. I really hate this question. I think it's so obvious. I mean, you just want to be an artist. I mean, that's what every artist wants to do. You just want to make money out of being an artist. That's your job. Obviously, you know, again, it's quite tough in this position that I am at the moment. You know, I've got so much advice, you know, go to New York. That's where it's at, go to New York. But, you know, things are easier said than done. But obviously that's my dream, to just, you know, be able to make work freely. Because if you're a highly creative person, you're most comfortable focusing your brain in that way. So if you have to go out and sort of make money other like ways, you know,
Is there one museum in the world that if you could have your work in, that you would pick?
I really don't. I never thought about that before. In a museum, wow.
That's what we're aiming for here. Big goals.
MoMA. Obviously, that would be pretty cool. You never know. Maybe someday. Jesus. Anything, you know, things like that. I'm never particular. I'm so grateful for any kind of, you know, if anybody offered me anything, I'd say yes to them, any kind of show. So I can't be too particular about that. Definitely being shortlisted for the Saatchi Award. I mean, painting isn't exactly the most popular medium. There's fantastic painters. I mean, it still is going strong. But you know, I think in some cases, you know, if you're kind of bringing your work, if you're applying to something and there's a panel, I mean, I personally feel like if there's not enough painters on the panel as a painter, I think you don't get enough of a fair chance, maybe. Yeah. I don't think it's neglected. I mean, to be honest, everything is so exciting, and there's so much stuff going on in every medium. It's really challenging, and I think the most important thing is just trying to put yourself out there and not being shy. Like me.